So I'm really excited to chat to you guys today about the big legal questions in relation to online wills. It's something I'm very, very passionate about because it is an area that has a lot of misconceptions, and online wills are very, respectively quite new to the legal space as well. So it's awesome to be able to unpack this for you guys and maybe address how they might be able to help your individual causes and organizations. So a bit of a breakdown today before we get stuck into it. And hopefully you can't hear the storm that is raging outside of my window in Brisbane at the moment. I heard Sydney's about the same at the moment. But all right, we're going to be jumping through a bit of an intro. We'll go through what these questions are that our team tends to get on the day to day. We'll go through who should use an online will and maybe who shouldn't use an online will. And then we'll get into some nitty gritty case studies where we'll reveal some juicy details, while of course protecting everybody's privacy, of some real tried and true will cases that have come across me and my team's desk. Very excited to share those with you. Before we get stuck into it, just a short moment about me. Hello, my name's Rica Ehlers. I'm the senior probate lawyer at Gathered Here Legal, and I've been here for about a year and a half now. Prior to this, I led up the Wills and Estates team over at Steindl Bradley and Associates, based up in Queensland, where I work from. And I've also been and currently a sessional academic with the Queensland University of Technology. So basically, I am a massive wills and estates nerd, everyone. That's all you need to know about me. And if you've ever met me, I've probably asked you the question, do you have an updated will? And on that note, I can't really interact too much with you guys, but I'd just like you to think about that question. If you personally don't have a will at the moment, maybe think about why that is, and hold on to those those thoughts while we go through this journey together. And maybe there'll be some answers for you there. Otherwise, yeah, feel free to reach out. Always happy to chat. So speaking of which, just some more background. I've probably drafted around 450 wills over the course of my career so far, including some not so traditional wills. And then at the other end of the journey, I've probably done around 400 consultations with people that have lost loved ones, and helped them kind of find a way forward, whatever that looks like, for their unique situation. So enough about me, a little bit about our lovely organisation Gathered Here. This is just a very high level overview of what we do here. There's obviously a lot going on, but yeah, I think it's just useful for context. I think what we're most known for is probably our online wills. So we've hit the 70,000 mark now, which is really awesome. So that's 70,000 free wills provided to people, which is just phenomenal. And yeah, look, obviously we also provide solicitor drafted wills if necessary. So just as an example, I personally once drafted a will for a client who wanted her children to receive her estate, but only if they passed a drug test first. And that is not something at the moment you'd be able to achieve with an online will. So whether or not we agree with her decision, yeah, that's a bit of a snapshot for you when that might not be appropriate, which we'll go into further later. Obviously, Gathered Here does some really great work with charities as well. So we partner with you guys to offer you custom branded online wills to your supporters so they can leave gifts to you, hopefully. This means that, our charity supporters are going to recognize the charity's branding. So we're talking colors, logos, imagery, messaging, and so on and so on. And we also help, charities and NFPs with bequest acquisition. So we're talking about bringing on entirely new, unknown entities and people to the organisations. And excitingly, we've also developed gift management software. So there, our partners are able to track in moderate detail gifts and wills, as well as analyze the data, and create custom reports and forecast future revenue, to get a really clear picture of their program, which is awesome. And then lastly, we've got funerals that we deal with as well. And this is an area that's really near and dear to us because this is how we started. We do currently have the largest funeral comparison database in Australia. And yeah, basically people can review prices for celebrants, burials, tombstones, anything you can think of to do with funerals. We've got it covered. And again, this is just from a position of we want to provide greater clarity and accessibility to this whole end of life space. Yeah, and then obviously we've got our legal team at the top there, and that's just we that our day involves helping vulnerable people who are at that other end of the journey, who have just lost a loved one and have absolutely no idea what to do. So that's what we do. Now, all that being said and done, let's talk about online wills. And these questions that are on the screen are the ones that we do get regularly, right? And before we jump into answering these, I think it might be helpful just to ask another question, which is what even is an online will? What are we talking about? Right. So, first of all, to understand, we should know what a regular will is, right? In a nutshell, a regular will is a document in which you write your wishes for what you want to happen to your stuff when you pass away. I think most people have heard of that. There's some terms you should probably be across. You're going to hear the word estate. That simply means your stuff. All right. So anything that you own at your date of passing, that's your estate. You're going to hear the word beneficiary. That's just anyone you're leaving your stuff to. All right, in your will. And then there's the word executor. That's a really important one. That's the person that you trust the most in the whole entire world to sort out your affairs. That's what those three words mean. All right. And then obviously you can do a lot of cool stuff with your will. So you can appoint guardians for your kids, your pets, put your burial wishes in, etc. An online will is just a regular will that's been generated online through use of, gathered here or something like that. So that's what we're talking about. Let's jump into answering these questions now. The first one, which is nice and big on the screen, is are online wills really legal? So yeah, this would have been really short if I'd said no, but yeah, very glad to report, yes, 100% online wills are legal. So regardless of the type of will that we're looking at, be it a post office will kit, a will from a solicitor, something somebody scrawled on a napkin, right? We're looking for a document that is called a formal will, and we want it to tick all the boxes, right, that the government sets out. And this is determined by each state, right? So keep that in mind. There's little differences between each state, but largely what we're looking for is a printed document. If we're talking about a gathered here will, right? A printed document. We want it signed and witnessed by two completely independent people who are not listed in the will. Don't put your executor as a witness. That's just my free advice to you. And a date that's consistent, and you all want to use the same pen and just put a staple in the top left corner, and you are fine. That's a formal binding will. There are some little extras I must mention. So one, you got to have what's called capacity, which is just your marbles, in order to create a document that has your wishes in it. And secondly, if somebody is holding a gun to your head, and forcing you to make a will, that's not going to be binding. That won't hold up as a legal will either. But yeah, with all of that actually cleared up, do we know how these online wills are actually standing up in court? Yes, we have some very interesting, exciting data to share. So basically, we did a bit of an analysis, the team and I, and of every single online will that has come across our desk, and this is a study of 20 plus now, in the past year or so, they've all held up 100% in court, which is just brilliant. And something to turn our minds to is, what does that even mean? What does holding up in court actually mean? So there is this thing called probate. I think I mentioned it before. And I've prepared this document earlier. So this is what you call a grant of probate. And Zoom is very kindly blurring my clients' details. Now, I've also redacted them for you. But yeah, this is essentially what you get. They used to be very formal and just there was a lot of tradition behind them, but unfortunately, most of the courts, or fortunately, have moved to an online system now. So yeah, we're just getting these electronic pieces of paper as probate, but they still do the trick in any respect. So this is the document that your executor, the person you trust the most in the whole entire world, is going to swap your original will with the court for. So they will give your original will to the court. The court will keep it forever. And in exchange, they give you this probate document. All right. And that is just saying, hey, look, the person who died is who they say they are. It is the last will. It's a formal will, like we talked about. And if it's not a formal will, the court will ask you questions for you to fix and provide information about, which we'll talk about later. And they just want to make sure you are who you say you are. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about probate. It's a court process. It's worth noting that not everybody requires probate. All right. So you don't always need to get probate. Happy to have a chat about that. And also, there would be some information on our website, gatheredhere.com.au. Just for a quick example, if I passed away with a valid will, and I just had a bank account, say it had $20,000 in it, I'm probably not going to need to get this piece of paper in order to deal with that bank account. The bank is probably going to release that money to my executor if I have a valid will. If you don't have a valid will, that is a whole other kettle of fish, and a whole another seminar's worth of information. So the moral of the story is it's really good manners to have a will, and you should absolutely have one, regardless of the situation, just to make it easier for everybody in your life, is what I would say. All right, so with that context in our back pocket, very happy to reiterate our 100% statistic about online wills, which is fabulous. But what I do want to address is that it's not all roses and happiness. So, of course, there are errors, but it's not just errors in online wills that arise, it's errors that arise across all different kinds of wills that are created. So, the team and I, again, we did a bit of a case study over the past, year and a bit, year and a half. And as you can see, we've kind of split the categories up here into you've got your solicitor drafted wills on this side, on the right, and you've got your non-solicitor drafted wills on the left side. So you've got your online wills, your post office wills, your self-typed wills. So basically, those who wanted to see a solicitor and those who are like, no, I'm going to try something different. As you can see, it's well, first of all, it's shocking because I think a lot of people think wills don't contain any errors at all, but that's just so far from the reality. And you'll see that there is repeated errors across each category of will. And what I will say, just in relation to online wills, is these errors here are not to do with the will itself. Something like this where the names are spelled incorrectly. That's to do with the will itself. But these errors really for online wills are to do with what happens to the will after the deceased has passed away. So there's definitely ways we can improve or minimize these errors that we see coming across our desks. But this is just to put it into perspective for everyone that every will is going to be subject to error. What I will say, and we'll chat more about this in a bit about why people are straying away from solicitor wills, but if someone was going to choose to do a will themselves, as you can see, online wills have the least number of errors, and this is due to a number of reasons. But what I will say is post office wills are great if you follow the instructions, but they're often confusing and they leave a lot of room for error. So, for example, last year I had a will come across my desk from a lady who she tried to follow the post office will instructions. She left her estate to nobody. She just appointed an executor by accident because it's not always clear. So these post office will kits and self-typed wills, God forbid, they have a lot of freedom in them for you to just stipulate whatever you want to happen. Whereas for our online wills, we have a handy dandy will platform, which is going to calculate percentages and numbers and generate wording that's been checked by solicitors to ensure that your wishes are affected. It's obviously still possible to stuff up an online will, as we've seen, but it's far less likely, in my opinion, than doing a post office will kit or a self-typed will, and even in some cases, a solicitor draft will as well, because ultimately these three here are going to be subject to human error, um, which is an interesting way to look at it. And obviously, I am not saying that solicitor drafted wills should not be used. I will address that shortly. But there is just a lot more utility in online wills than we give them credit for sure. Something I did want to just alleviate or make you feel better about is that where there is an error, we can fix it. 99% of the time. I could talk about this side of things for a whole hour, but I'm not going to do that because you'll all probably be very bored. But just to, you know, I'll give you an example, probably say dementia, right? There, if we do go back to our errors, you'll see that will writer with dementia appears across online and solicitor drafted wills, right? If that were to arise, for example, the person putting the will through probate would be obtaining evidence from the will writer's general practitioner, preferably at the time that the will maker actually made the will. And we'd be presenting that to the court. And we'd say, hey, look, the will maker did in fact have capacity when they wrote their will. How does the court even know that the will maker didn't have capacity? On a death certificate, it's got a cause of death. And quite often when we're seeing elderly people, even more now than ever, dementia, stroke, things like that are popping up, which, yeah, would just raise a few eyebrows at the court so that the court would make sure no one's being taken advantage of and that everybody, is doing things by the book. Obviously there's a lot more things that could go wrong with making a will, but like I said, there is an answer to most of those things which are on the screen at the moment too. All right, so all of that being said and done, how long is it before we actually start seeing online wills go through probate? Hopefully the answer is pretty evident that we're already seeing them go through probate, which is very, very exciting. Something really interesting about these statistics is that it's almost a 50-50 divide between solicitor made wills and alternative wills. So people that have used an online will or created a will themselves, etc. This is really, really exciting to me for a couple of different reasons. But, if you looked at these statistics even 5 years ago from what I've seen, you'd be looking at a much higher percentage of solicitor made wills. This to me shows that there's a greater demand for people to have access to creating wills who may not necessarily have $1,000 free at the moment, as the cost of living crisis is absolutely no joke. But yeah, and this is especially impressive considering that online wills have only been mainstream for a couple of years now. I think more to that point, if we look at, again, talking about the sample that the team and I analysed, the average time between someone making an online will and then dying compared to a solicitor drafted will and then dying, there was an average of 3.3 years between an online will being created and then the person passing away, which is pretty incredible. Why it's funny is because solicitors will tell you to update your will as life dictates, and that whatever that means, right? So really what we're telling you to do is regularly review your will, and if possible every couple of years, but that's just not feasible. So why this is so cool is it shows that people do want to update their wills. They just they've now been given the means to and the accessibility to, which is so awesome. looking specifically at our gathered here wills, we can get even more kind of granular with those data points. And look, because our law firm is really small, this is a small sample size, but there is very little data available at the moment. So I think anything will probably help. But as you can see, of the 4 gathered here wills that have come across our desk in the past year, there was an average of 5 months between the will writer making their will and actually passing away. That's incredible. This is the specific points are listed above the averages below if you want to look at those. But yeah, that's really, really amazing stuff. And the average estate value that we're looking at for our gathered here wills has been $575,000. So we're not dealing with low worth individuals. We're dealing with people that had, I'd say, a significant estate compared to what comes across our desk and wanted to update their wills prior to passing. And we will talk about some of these more urgent ones in the case studies that we go into. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's honestly pretty amazing stuff. And just on that point of what kind of estates are we dealing with? In general, so as we just said, that's the figure we're looking at for our online wills that gathered here, 575,000. And for other online wills that we analysed, we're looking at an average of $565,000, which is incredible. And again, that captures all sides of the spectrum. So, of course, we would have much, much lower worth individuals that I have spoken to and conducted conferences with, but have not needed probate call up to discuss their gathered here will. And we've also got gathered here will makers with their estates in the millions. So really our will is being used by everybody. I mean, just from the data that's in front of us right now, which is really lovely and just, yeah, really a testament to our philosophy and purpose that we're setting out to achieve. And this is reflected too in the age group of will writers that we're seeing. So as you can see, there's a very even spread across these different age groups. So it's not only people over the age, of 65 who are creating wills, but also, these younger kind of people as well. So I'd hazard a guess and say we wouldn't see that kind of spread if they didn't have access to our online wills, is my best assumption. And on that note now, I would just say too, you will all be sent the slides to this presentation and also, basically access to the recording. So please reach out if you would like our gifts and will report. It's going to go into a lot more detail about all of these demographics, which might help you in a lot more granular detail. I think, what have we got? Their location, gender, family, structure, everything. So just definitely reach out if you'd like a copy of that. And I'll pop a QR code on the screen at the end of the presentation for you too. So just to touch a little bit on who online wills are suitable for, I personally like to think of online wills as an elevated post office will kit, right? So if you need a will quickly, you can literally jump onto your computer, sit down 10, 20 minutes, whip up a will, and you're done. That's amazing. Compared to, maybe the 6 to 8 week wait you'd encounter if you went through your solicitor. So that's pretty significant if you do need a will in a hurry, noting that some of our will makers, passed away within 11 days, which we'll talk about specifically in a little bit, but 11 days of making their will and passing away. So where there is urgency can be a really good option. If you want a free option, we talked about that before as well. It's free. Like there's no charge, there's no catches. $0, and you're saving, in comparison, could be $1,000 plus, if not more, if you went to go see a solicitor. And if you know what you want to do, if you just want to get something down, you want a will, you've got a simple estate, bam, that is who should be using online wills. And as we've seen, just a lot of different types and demographics of people have found use through our will, which is lovely to see. And on the flip side of the coin, what I'll say is if you feel like you need legal advice, if you want to do anything fancy, stay away. All right. So definitely go and see a solicitor. Um, get some estate planning advice if you're going to exclude somebody from your will. If you think there's going to be a big fight, maybe there's ways the solicitor can help you arrange your affairs so that you're not going to your beneficiaries won't have to suffer through that. Um, if you want to create trusts or business structures, anything like that, please go see a solicitor too. They can help you do that. Or if you've just got weird wishes, like we talked about before, like that lady. So things like conditional gifts. Right now, online wills don't have the capability to to contemplate these kinds of arrangements, but we're seeing what we can do in the future to make these more accessible to people. So right now, just keep it simple, and as long as you follow the instructions, the execution instructions, an online will be very valuable to you. So I'll just jump into some of the case studies now, of actual cases that came across our desk. And what I want to say is I know I've just scared everybody about going to see a solicitor. A, a couple of these people are not what I would say the ideal candidate for an online will. But lo and behold, we have got all of these wills through probate, and achieved this piece of paper that we talked about earlier, which is awesome for a fixed fee too. So our probate we try to keep that accessible as well, even though you're getting assistance with a solicitor. So in this situation, we had Arthur. Arthur had an online will, all right. He's divided his assets in a bit of a peculiar way, you might say. But look, each to their own. So he's divided his assets between his spouse, his child, his stepchild, and his sister. And the zinger, so what was interesting about Arthur is they actually, him and his spouse, separated after the will was written, and Arthur never updated it. So Arthur came in to see us, and we were telling him, well, not Arthur. Arthur's executor came in to see us, and we were saying, you got to wait. We're expecting this estate to get contested, but the executor was really good at managing the family, and there was no contest that arose. So this ended up being completely, totally fine. And the will, like I said, just went through probate, no dramas, which was a relief for everybody, especially me. um, and now we've got another example where, okay, this one was interesting. So this was a Western Australian estate. Ben passed away 1 month, okay, before, just 1 month after writing his gathered here will. He was on his deathbed, and I was asking his executor who came to see me, what do you know why he chose to do a gathered here will? And his executor told me that, look, he told me basically he wanted to keep costs down. That was the option. And he moved away from his traditionally solicitor drafted wills to come across to gathered here to use our will. Now, and he had, significant assets as well, 880,000 sitting there, including a property he had. Now, he was fine during his lifetime and passed away completely unrelated to any dementia, and anything to do with capacity. But on his death certificate, dementia was noted, right? So that was surprising to everybody, including the executor. And once we got the death certificate, the court, of course, asked us, you're going to need to show us that he had capacity to make a will, especially because he passed away so close to when he made the will. So we were, in this instance, able to just, nicely talk to the deceased doctor who was seeing him as he, up to his passing, and get a medical note that stated he did have capacity to make a will through gathered here as well, which is awesome. And that was completely fine. That went through probate, absolutely no questions asked. What I will say at this point as a freebie for anybody listening who needs to do their own will or get their parents sorted out, anything like that. What you should do is just attend upon your doctor and get them to write a letter. It can just be simple that says, hey, look, this person has capacity on this date to make a will. And then what your executor would do is submit that letter that you've already written that they've then kept with your original will to the court if probate is required. So that will save you a lot of hassle down the road, and yeah, Australia is quite ageist. So I would say this applies to anybody 65 and older. Definitely go and do that just to make your loved ones' lives a little bit easier, just to be on the safe side. It's worth it. Oh goodness. Last case study, Charlie. So Charlie was from South Australia. He passed away, and South Australia notoriously has the most brutal probate registry, which is good. But in this case, Charlie did everything completely correctly. So he did a gathered here will. He had quite a significant estate. We're talking 1.3 million. And he passed away just 3 months after making his will. And again, he wanted to save the costs. He wanted his family to actually, receive the lion's share of his estate instead of seeing it go to solicitors. What happened, unfortunately, for Charlie is that after he signed the will and stored it, his executor unstapled it. And that might sound completely irrelevant, but the court was very worried that, hey, did somebody remove some wishes or add some wishes to this will? Why are there staple holes? Why are there these two little snake bites in the top left corner of the document? And that protracted things for a very long time. How we kind of got around this one was simple, but still annoying for the executor. We had to get some evidence from him, basically recounting how he found the will, and swearing, on oath that he has not tampered with this will document. Because again, remember the court is actually examining the original will, when you submit it to probate. So this one's a really, really good lesson. You just want to keep that will that you do so pristine. And you just never want to remove the staples if you can help it. If you ever need to make a copy of a will, don't take the staples out. Just take copies of the individual pages. That's just, yeah, that's going to be the best scenario for you for sure. But look, that was fine. Charlie's estate was probated, and we sorted it out for him. So that was excellent in the end. And again, $1.3 million estate. So this is a very high worth individual in terms of the average estate value that we're seeing. And again, proof that high value individuals are using our wills. It's worth saying actually that this will had a gift to charity as well in it. So not only was it a high value estate, but it did have our model's working, and a charity did benefit as a result of Charlie's passing. And he was able to update his will to include that charity, which was not previously in his will prior to 3 months before his passing, which is pretty incredible. So, all right. I think we've talked a lot today. Please reach out if anyone's got any other questions, but a bit of a wrap up. Are online wills legal? Absolutely. When you tick the boxes, all right. So if you do a gathered here online will, please follow the signing instructions very carefully. And if you have doubts, please reach out to our legal team. We conduct a will review of our signed gathered here wills just to make sure that those errors we see are addressed, and that's very valuable. So 2, who are online wills suitable for? Just anybody with simple wishes who wants a quick, convenient and affordable will. Who's using this? Everybody. Well, a big spread across a lot of different demographics. Do they stand up in court? They absolutely do. 100% of our online wills have stood up in court. I'm going to keep repeating that statistic. It's very it's lovely to hear. What types of estates are left in online wills? Average, for 574, 575,000. But again, that's indicative of a widespread of estates. So yeah, a widespread of estates, including some high value ones like 1.3 million, as we've seen. Um, how long before we start seeing wills probated? It's already happening, guys. It is happening. I reckon if I gave another presentation in about 5 years, the swing between solicitor and alternative wills might go a little bit in the other direction, but we'll see. What if somebody makes a mistake in their will? We just deal with it. All right, the court will ask you questions, and you'll just deal with it. Again, 99% of problems are fixable. Yeah, if you follow the instructions on your online will. And where's the proof? The proof is coming from us. So again, we've conducted studies over the past year and a bit of wills that have come across our desks, and that's like over 100 wills. So yeah, pretty small data sample, but a significant one, I would say. And as promised, look, there's a link to the Gifts and Wills report. If you want to scan that one, that's all cool. Otherwise, again, just reach out to the team when you receive the link to this recording and to our slides, and we'll be glad to provide you with that information. All right, well, we're basically at time now, so I'll leave you guys be. I hope we've all kind of got some answers to some questions now. And yeah, for those people that still don't have a will, just yeah, maybe consider if an online will might be right for you. Otherwise, definitely go do the right thing by your family and get that in order. And a last little tip, superannuation doesn't necessarily form part of your estate. Go reach out to your super provider to do a binding death benefit nomination. That's it. Bye.